if Johnson can take advantage of this. He is undefeated here at 10-0.
Very impressive, and playing a couple main deck copies of Overmaster, which is a card that's been picking up a little bit in popularity lately.
A couple main deck copies here of Flusterstorm as well, so a couple oddballs here for Johnson, but those are working out nicely for him. Briksza going to start off with a copy of Deathrite Shaman. Johnson, a Scalding Tarn, simply passing the turn back. An attack here for 1 will bring Johnson down to 19. That'll be the first points of damage here in round number 11. A Creeping Tar Pit and just a passing of the turn here for Briksza. Johnson will draw a card. Of course, the goal of his deck is to get an Emrakul or a Gristlebrand into play by any means necessary. If he's able to do that, winning is pretty easy from there.
And the deck is so overpowering, too. Can easily win through the type of disruption that Rudy brings to the table game 1, which is essentially hymns, I think a couple copies of Thoughtseize, a couple copies, 4 copies of Force of Will, but not a lot of interaction. You can see Rudy's hand right now with a Toxic Deluge in it, which will be a very little help here.
Scalding Tarn will search up an island as Johnson goes down to 18. We'll see what Johnson wants to put together this turn. Perhaps a cantrip here in Brainstorm or Ponder, or even one of those preordains that he has. And he will opt to go with a Ponder of the text-list variety. Take a look at those top 3 cards. Lotus Petal among them, very quickly on a shuffle, so he did not like what he saw there at all.
Singing Show deck goes off from a very, very low base, unlike some of the other combo decks we've been watching, which require a lot of moving parts, even though there's some redundancy. This is just A plus B.
Ponder is done resolving. Mystery card coming here. Lotus Petal is what he's found. See Force of Will in Johnson's hand here as well. We'll just pass the turn back over to Briksza. Thoughtseize the draw here for Rudy. Timely.
Huge draw.
He will cast that off his Tar Pit. Johnson doesn't look like he wants to let it resolve, but he's going to have to. So here's the hand. There's a Show and Tell there. There's also Lotus Petal and Force of Will. And just a couple of lands. An Ancient Tomb, Volcanic Island, and Flooded Strand.
This to me feels like you just take the Show and Tell and leave Peter in a position where he needs to draw both a creature and something to put that creature into play with.
Show and Tell going to bite the dust there, predictably. Most powerful card there in Johnson's hand. Force of Will now uncastable. See if Briksza can keep the pressure on. Looks like he will just be passing the turn back with a Deathrite Shaman activation at the ready. Johnson going to sacrifice. Dig a land up out of his deck. See, he does have a basic mountain in his deck this weekend. Sometimes we see that in Sneak Show, sometimes we don't, but he does have one of those.
And Rudy not playing his Wasteland the last turn, trying to potentially trap Peter into a spot where he deploys a non-basic land. Though Peter's hand is so heavy on mana that I think that I would prefer to play the Wasteland anyway, because it could free up Rudy to potentially start attacking with a Creeping Tar Pit, and it would be good for Rudy to get some pressure going before Peter's able to draw out of this.
Also, given the contents of Johnson's hand, you mentioned that it is a little mana heavy. I don't think that Wastelanding him is really an option at this point anyway. Yeah. It seems unlikely, I suppose I would say. Here's a Deathrite Shaman activation.
And if I'm in Rudy's position, I just want to start attacking as fast as I can, you know? You can't necessarily hold Peter off forever, even though his hand currently isn't very good.
Abrupt Decay the draw. A card that is quite poor in this matchup. So we'll just pass the turn back. Johnson will draw. There is a Volcanic. Perhaps the Wasteland target that Briksza is looking for. There's Lotus Petal. And this will give Johnson the opportunity to actually hardcast a Force of Will. Now, Deathrite Shaman going to go to work here. Johnson's going to go down to 13.
Peter has also picked up a copy of Flusterstorm as well, and Emrakul. So he's really only one card away from being able to go for it.
There is Wasteland. That'll take care of the Volcanic Island.
And this is where my critique came from earlier in the game. You know, he drew a Verdant Catacombs this turn that he can't deploy. And Peter has so much mana to work with. I mean, he still has an Ancient Tomb in hand that Rudy's aware of. So it's not like that Wasteland's going to be worth very much at the end of the day.
Mountain the draw. We'll deploy that.
That means we have 8 rounds.
Briksza will draw. Deploy that Verdant Catacombs. 2 Forcibles in hand now.
Round number 1, you may begin.
Perhaps it's time to fire up that tar pit. We'll see. I mean, that would tap him out the entire turn. But
Time to go beat downs.
yeah. And the longer it goes, the worse it gets for Briksza here, I believe.
And Peter's already drawn the first piece of the puzzle here. He has one of his creatures now. That's why it's important to have a lot of pressure alongside your disruption.
Yeah.
Because you just can't wait forever against these decks.
Briksza going to sacrifice Verdant Catacombs, and Abrupt Decay will go after a Lotus Petal.
Boom shakalaka.
Indeed.
Got him.
Teach him a lesson he'll never forget.
Exactly. I do not know how Peter will recover. I mean, you know, the Abrupt Decay's got to go somewhere. That's fine. The only upside to leaving in your hand is if you draw Brainstorm, it can be something that's shuffled away, but on the balance, it's probably worth casting.
Briksza will draw another copy of Force of Will. 3 of those now. Here comes Deathrite Shaman. See a copy of Dig Through Time in hand.
Now Rudy on 2 forces plus 2 blue cards to go alongside them. So good spot to be in.
Take a draw. Copy of Bayou. Here comes the Tar Pit. So in for 4 points of damage. Put him down to 6. Johnson will draw. Copy of Preordain. I imagine he's saying to himself, finally something to do.
Yeah, he's not drawn cantrips in a number of turns here.
Show and Tell, one of the options. That one going to stay on top. Not much of a surprise. Perhaps it's time to go to class. It's going to go down to 4. That's a touch risky. See if this works out. This could end poorly here for Johnson. Force of Will, removing Force of Will. Targeting the Show and Tell. Johnson's going to go down to 3. He'll Force of Will back. Briksza will Force of Will back, and that is going to do it just like that.
But even there, in that spot, even if the Emrakul comes into play, Rudy still has to kill.
Yeah.
As Peter goes to 3, activating the Creeping Tar Pit, or excuse me, casting the Force of Will, Rudy can activate the Creeping Tar Pit, and it's a win either way.
Life is good for Rudy Briksza. Does win game number 1 here over Peter Johnson. Charlotte Sultai up a game here over Sneak and Show. As we will turn our attention to Johnson's sideboard, you will find an Elishorn, Grand Cenobite, a Wipe Away, a Boseiju who shelters all, 2 Through the Breach, 2 Omniscience, 2 Pyroclasm, 2 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Defense Grid, and 2 copies of Pithing Needle.
Sort of a weird position because Rudy's disruption comes from a bunch of different angles. So do you bring in Defense Grid against a deck that only has so many counter spells? Do you bring in Through the Breach against a deck with only so many discard spells? I'm not totally sure how he wants to address this. I do like bringing in the 1 copy of Boseiju as its low opportunity cost and high upside. I think the 2 copies of Pyroclasm are fine against Rudy's deck, though the creatures in question really aren't that meaningful in the scheme of things. I think Peter may ultimately present something very close to the deck that he had game 1.
Not sure there's a reason to change too much on his side. Just not a great draw for him there.
For sure.
Take a look at Briksza's sideboard.
A Scrub Land, 2 copies of Containment Priest, 2 Meddling Mages, 2 Nile Spellbombs, 2 copies of Grafdigger's Cage, a Numazawa's Jitte, a Pithy Needle, a Disfigured, 2 copies of Golgari Charm, and 1 Pernicious Deed. So the Scrub Land is here to enable the white cards, Containment Priest, and Meddling Mage. I think those are definitely coming in. Past that, I think the 2 copies of Golgari Charm are fine here. Sneak and Show is often in a position where they have to tap out for Sneak Attack and hope to get to the next turn. And so enchantment removal, even though it doesn't look like it'd be particularly good, does have moments of being very powerful.
Well, we'll see how both players use sideboard. Game number 2 will be underway in just a moment. But while we do wait, we will talk about Star City Games game night. Used to be every Wednesday. Now it's any day of the week you want to run it, and you see what's available here for January.
Yeah, every month we send out a new kit that involves 2 pins and 8 tokens to give out each week. This is the January kit. If you want to get out, sign up for February, you are running out of time. Head over to starcgames.com/game9 to get your store signed up today. Stores, we give you the discretion to run the event however you want to, whatever time, sanctioned or unsanctioned, whatever format you think will get players in your store for some fun and friendly magic. Sign up today.
Mammoths. Oh, Mammoths. Gonna need more than a 3/3 to beat the Sneak and Show deck, though.
It's true. 3/3 is typically not very good.
Even if the Mammoth is adorable.
And if they show and tell, you cannot put Call of the Herd into play because it is a sorcery.
Let's change the ruling on that.
They should.
It's not too good, so I think let's change the ruling on that. That's what I would do.
Put a land, creature, enchantment, artifact, or sorcery/instant that puts an elephant into play.
Text box would be a little messy, I think, but
New Judge promo, maybe?
we can find a way to clean it up. I'm going to start lobbying here for Call of the Herd to make a comeback.
They lost their opportunity. Innistrad would have been the perfect time because they were already bringing Flashback back as a mechanic.
But I believe that Call of the Herd is going to, I believe that Flashback is going to come back. I'm not sure what year. It's 2015 right now, so I'm going to strive for 2017. So
Too soon.
Use the hashtag COTH2017.
I think that's too soon.
For Flashback?
Yeah.
Innistrad was like 3 years ago.
Right, and bringing back a keyword that specific, having it twice in 5 years is too frequent.
All right, it would be like 5 or 6 years. Nah.
I think 2020 is a better line to set.
Is it okay? Do I have your permission to bring cycling back then?
Cycling is not a great mechanic.
It's the best mechanic. Who are you?
Pretty bad.
What is wrong with cycling? You better have a strong opinion about this.
It's lame, and a lot of players just don't even get it, / don't even realize it's in their hand, / don't realize they're supposed to be doing it. Like the average player puts cards in their deck because they want to draw and cast that card, not because they want to cycle it away.
It's nice to have options.
Watch casual players or relatively new players have a cycling card in their hand and see if they ever cycle it. They never cycle it.
Well, you have to learn to cycle.
Well, you can also make mechanics that people don't have to learn how to, enable it, or what the opportunity cost is, or where the power level comes from.
I feel like I agree with you around 90% of the time.
Well, cycling is a Spike's dream because you get to feel like you never get to get land screwed or flood out or whatever. But you can do that with a mechanic like Scry, which a low-level player is also able to participate in. A low-level player can look at the top card of their deck and be like, okay, I do or do not want to draw this. They can participate that just as easily as you can. But cycling is not the same thing.
I suppose.
It's just not a great mechanic. It's good for players like us at our level of investment, but for relatively new players, it stinks. It'll probably come back at some point because, the well dries up. It'll generate excitement in a portion of the community, but it's not a great mechanic.
The best one. You have to choose one. You bring back cycling or you bring back Echo.
Ooh,
Yeah.
probably cycling.
I come with the heat.
Man, Saga had some stinkers. Oofa.
I come with the heat, my friend.
Essentially, in my opinion, Scry is cycling done right. It does a lot of the same things that cycling does without nearly being as baffling to wrap your head around as cycling is for a low-level player.
Cycling just feels good. I just get to draw cards. I love the motion of drawing cards. That's why I like it. The motion of scrying, looking at my card and putting it back, not a very fun motion. I have to wait to get that card.
Sure.
Cycling is just get rid of this crap, give me a new one. Love it. Love it. Now, if they make some sort of Astral Slide for Scry, I'm willing to talk to you. Astral Slide was probably a terrible idea, but boy, I love that card.
I think that Astral Slide was pretty bad, but part of the problem was there were so many low opportunity cost cyclers in that block that you got to fill your deck with 40 cyclers easily.
Yeah, baby.
It's a poor design and poor development surrounding it. The double whammy.
The 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
Johnson's going to be on the play here. We'll see if he can find a hand that he likes. He's kept his 7. Rudy, I don't think, would keep 10. Let's see if he would keep 13. Doesn't look like so either. So he's going to go down to 6. How do you feel about Lightning Rift?
Pretty horrible. Cards that just sort of lock your opponent out of the game at a low opportunity cost should be avoided.
Those are the best ones.
When your opponent, what Magic should try to avoid, and it's done a very good job over this the last couple of years, you draw a creature, and you say, there's not even a point to put this into play because it's just going to die for free. So designs like Visara, they, relatively low cost for that kind of effect, very high power level. That's kind of a mistake. Lightning Rift engenders some of the same feelings. Astral Slide could do the same thing. It's not even worth casting this. Avoid getting to that spot.
Andy hates you. That's his Twitter name.
Yep.
I'm not sure if Andy actually hates you or not. Probably does. Starting a campaign for Astral Slide 2017 on Twitter. Right there with him.
Okay. Well, I think you're out of luck.
That comes back, I'm out of the booth. I'm back into play. Just so you know.
Whatever. I mean, if that's the tipping point for you leaving the booth, then I guess this relationship was not meant to last anyway.
As long as they're a good... What if they just reprinted Astral Slide with no cycling cards?
That's
and
fine.
I'd have to just go out there and play with it.
Yeah. That's even poorer design.
Here is a Ponder. It's just it's a little spoiler for things to come. That's all.
Sure.
The cycling comes in the set after it. Maybe it never comes.
A lot of ins, a lot of outs.
Happy with his Ponder. Johnson will keep. Here's a Thoughtseize. Emrakul. Flusterstorm. Omniscience. Another Flusterstorm. Gristlebrand. And a Scalding Tarn.
So I'm interested to see the Omniscience here. Usually it comes in matchups where you feel like you can resolve Show and Tell and it's not necessarily good enough, which I suppose against Charlotte Sultai could be a reality against their Planeswalkers and potential sweepers.
Emrakul going to go down to the graveyard, which means that Johnson's going to have to shuffle his deck. So if he got a little creative with Ponder, Briksza going to blow that up.
Well, he left Force of Will on top of his deck as a concession to he had to draw one of the two cards in question. The other one was Pithy Needle. But I don't think he's really that excited about drawing either one of them. So I think Peter will take the shuffle pretty gladly. A Force of Will is not a shabby draw here, but I think he would prefer a cantrip or a land at this stage.
So Thoughtseize giving Briksza the information to work with moving forward in the game. Knows there are two Flusterstorms over there. But no sneak attack, no show and tell just yet here for Peter Johnson, who is undefeated with this deck. Hasn't put up the numbers that it used to. But I think a lot more people started respecting Sneak and Show as one of the best decks in the format.
Although I think that the hate for it is starting to wane a little bit. So could be poised for a comeback.
Johnson will untap and draw. A copy of Show and Tell comes rolling off the top of the deck. There's a Scalding Tarn, a passing of the turn. Brainstorm the draw here for Briksza. Briksza does have a Brainstorm available. Trying to figure out what land he wants to play and how he wants to sequence things here. Flusterstorm in the opponent's hand, however, makes Brainstorm maybe not a great play at this point.
But I don't know what Rudy's alternatives is, because the only other thing he can do is just put his tar pit into play and say go. He can Brainstorm at the end of Peter's turn and try to make the opportunity cost for leaving up the mana a little bit higher.
He's going to go with the Delta and deploy a Tarmogoyf, so get a clock going. See what land he wants to search up here. Bayou does look to be an option, but he'll go with Tropical Island instead. And Johnson will sacrifice his Scalding Tarn.
This feels preemptive to me for a number of reasons. One is you're giving up a shuffle in the event that you draw Ponder or Brainstorm. And second, Peter seems like he's in a position where he really wants to draw a land. And so thinning a land out of the deck seems like the opposite of what he would want to be doing. Perhaps he has something to do with the 2 mana at the end of Rudy's turn, but otherwise I would have kept the fetch land into my own turn if I was Peter.
Yeah, hoping to increase the chances of drawing a land in this instance.
Or, you ponder, you like one of the 3 cards.
Yeah.
That comes up too.
He will draw. It is not a land. He will just pass the turn back. Misty Rainforest. And draw here for Rudy. He will play a Brainstorm. This will resolve. So a couple of cards coming here. Containment Priest among them. He does have a small white splash in his sideboard, as we explained.
Although I believe his one white source of mana is the Scrubland, so this Misty Rainforest does not enable his white cards.
Ah, the big whammy. There is a Misty. Here comes Tarmogoyf.
It's very rare to see that in Legacy. Someone have the fetch land that does not get the dual land in question.
Brainstorm the draw here for Johnson. This could end poorly if things don't line up correctly for him. 3 cards drawn, 2 will go back. Don't think there was a fetch land there or anything, so maybe a little Brainstorm lock action.
And again, the consequence of not having that Scalding Tarn available, even setting aside he would have been fractionally more likely to draw a land. I mean, shuffling away some of the redundancies and getting more looks at mana would have been a big deal there for Peter.
Another attack for 3. We go back Johnson's way. 17-13 in favor of Briksza. We'll discard Gristlebrand and simply pass the turn back. In comes Tarmogoyf, down at 10. Actually going to be down at 9 as Tarmogoyf did grow due to a creature being placed in the graveyard. Actually, just going to hold steady at this point. Could play a Jace, but electing not to. Dig through time, Force of Will at the ready.
And Rudy in no position to rush here because he's aware, or can at least probably guess, that Peter's likely to discard again, as he discarded the last turn.
Yeah. And he discards another copy of Gristlebrand. There's another hit with Tarmogoyf. Now keep in mind, Johnson does have a Lotus Petal in his hand and Show and Tell, so he's trying to trap Briksza here. And this could end up quite poorly, perhaps getting a little too creative with his plays. Johnson will draw. It's a land.
Well, that has to be the draw that lets him stay into it.
I have to imagine, as there's a Lotus Petal, and now here's a copy of Show and Tell.
Just double checking here to make sure there's no other white source in this deck, and it is only the 1 scrub land. So Containment Priest is not online.
Force of Will, removing Jace the Mind Sculptor there for Briksza. This will be a Flusterstorm to take care of that. Well, so many spells already placed on the stack in Lotus Petal, Force of Will, and Show and Tell.
And I think that's the reason that Peter went and held the Lotus Petal for as long as he wanted to. He wanted to build up the storm count for Flusterstorm. The turn he went off because Rudy was holding up so much mana.
There's Tropical Island. As you mentioned, it's rare that the player cannot actually fetch up the specific land for the spells in their hand, especially in this format, but Misty Rainforest cannot find the white mana for Briksza to be able to cast Containment Priest. If it could, it would probably be a game winner. Here's Dig Through Time. So Briksza looking for the 1-2 punch here of Force of Will plus blue card.
Yeah, given his distribution of fetch lands, I don't think there's any one land he can play to always enable.
Whole bunch of cards there from Dig Through Time, but I don't think any of them are what he's looking for.
And there's only 1 copy of Misty Rainforest. The other fetches do it. So this is the only time that this comes up.
Sure. It's unlikely for it to come up, but it has in this instance.
Yep. Yeah, he's on 4 Verdant Catacombs, 4 Polluted Delta.
And then 1 Misty.
Yeah.
Sure. Perhaps a little bit of bad luck there.
You make your own luck.
Fair enough. Omniscience will come in. Containment Priest will as well. Here's a hard cast Gristlebrand. Though Johnson unable to activate that.
Yeah, he's got to get to next turn.
Briksza will draw a copy of Ancestral Visions. He will Golgari Charm there. There's a Flusterstorm. That Rudy will pay for. And no good attacks to be made. Now Rudy does have a copy of pithing needle in his hand, and the ability to cast it, I believe, with Deathrite Shaman, depending on the fetch lands over in Johnson's graveyard. So I would want to deploy that and shut down that Gristlebrand, and he's able to do that. And now it's just passing of the turn. So now it's just got to be a 7/7 lifelink flyer.
Yeah, which is still not a bad consolation prize.
Yeah. Johnson looking at a pithing needle and City of Traders. One card stays on top, other one goes on the bottom, so it looks like he's going to draw a needle. We'll deploy a needle. See what he's going to name here. I'll go Deathrite Shaman. Pass the turn back, so hanging back on D. Pluto dealt to the draw. Ancestral Vision will be suspended. 4 counters there. There is a Pluto Delta, and just a passing of the turn. So both players look like they're going to stare at each other for a little while.
I don't know what the incentive is to play defense here. I think Peter's got a very good shot of winning the damage race as things line up.
Yeah, an attack here for 7 puts Briksza down to 8, Johnson up to 13. Briksza cracks back for 5, 6, 7, 8. I think that Briksza would win the race. I think that Johnson would win the race, but now I think he certainly wins the race because Rudy went from 15 to 13.
Exactly. That Thoughtseize is a huge deal there from Rudy, as now Gristlebrand represents a 2-turn clock. We'll see if Johnson turns it on and starts attacking, but it's gotten a lot more attractive. And I feel like even if you're uncertain, the Ancestral Vision's ticking down means you should try to get a move on.
And he's going to get into the red zone now. It's a 2-turn clock instead of a 3-turn clock. I think you have to take advantage of that. Briksza going to go down to 5. Does have a Containment Priest to play.
And I wonder if you're in Rudy's spot there, if you're just supposed to not Thoughtseize, because as long as Peter is playing along with the ruse that he can't attack, maybe you're just supposed to do the same thing.
You're not supposed to tip him off.
Once you Thoughtseize and you go from 15 to 13, now it becomes much more attractive for Peter to attack. And in reality, Peter switched gears there and attacked that turn. Now Rudy's facing lethal.
Also, my question there, as he attacks for a whole bunch, so 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and drew a Meddling Mage for the turn, just going to pass the turn back because Meddling Mage isn't going to be able to name anything helpful, is what are you Thoughtseizing, I suppose is the question. Like, what do you think is in your opponent's hand that is useful at that point?
Exactly. He's probably got a land, a large creature, a counterspell, or something to cheat something into play.
Yeah.
Some of those cards do combine with other draw steps to be threatening, but I think that keeping yourself at 15, given the fact that Peter didn't attack the previous turn, and the rationale has to be, well, he's 3 turns away from death. It's not worth me going on the offensive. I could lose the race. Means that Rudy in that spot is supposed to just hang tight and wait and hope that the Ancestral comes off and gives him some help.
Yeah, I just think that there's a lot of cards that you have your opponent locked out of there. When you have a decent board, a Containment Priest in place, so now Show and Tell and Sneak Attack are basically off the table, and you have a Needle locked down on Gristlebrand, you know, the cards that get you into trouble are cards that I think Peter would be casting right away anyway. Some way to bounce the Needle, some way to bounce the Containment Priest, where you're not going to be able to Thoughtseize that particular card.
Exactly. Everything dangerous, Peter gets to do immediately. The only potentially dangerous things that he could have in his hand have to be paired with something else he draws. So, I do like the Omniscience in the sideboard, I will say, for Peter. That's a way to get around Containment Priest that I had not considered. To me, it usually struck me as a sideboard card for Sneak and Show mirrors, because you don't want to Show and Tell in something, have them put in something, and let them go first. But Omniscience is a really nice way to work around Containment Priest.
It is a roundabout way to get the job done.
Yeah, it's, some redundancy is nice anyway against a deck with a lot of discard, and if they're bringing in Containment Priest, if you suspect that, well, perfect.
Gate Order 3 going to be underway here in just a moment, but we will talk about Magic's most popular web comic. 4 books available here of Cardboard Crack.
Yeah, available on paperback, and now, as Cedric mentioned, the 4th one available as well. Very successful comic strip, beloved, and now available in paperback form. On sale now for $12.99 a piece. StarCityGames.com/cardboardcrack to order your copies today.
Plenty of people, by the way, are with me on Astral Slide coming back. I think it's you who is wrong.
You want to know a principle of game design?
Right now I do.
People often don't know what they want. What people think they want, that's going to sound really paternalistic, but it's true. What people think they want and what they actually want are often 2 different things.
So I'm wrong about wanting Armageddon.
No, I'm saying that if you added up all the things that you thought that you wanted, Some of them would turn out to be things you actually did want, but still were too harmful for the community at large to bring back. And some of them, as it would turn out, would be not fun at all.
Fair. Fair.
Because your
So
opponent...
you're not the game designer we want. You're the game designer that we need.
Exactly. Because you know what? Sometimes your opponent gets to draw that card too. That's the thing that gets lost in the preview.
Oh. Okay.
That's why I get it for Constructed, because people like to build certain decks, and you know, when you see powerful cards that enable your strategy, you're like, sweet, this is gonna be fun. When people get excited about cards for their power level in draft, I am just befuddled. Because it's like, you know, your opponent has this sometimes too, also, you know? This card's really powerful, cool. Half the time it gets cast, roughly, it'll be your opponent casting it.
My opponent will have the Visara.
Right.
And then I'm dead.
Right.
I can't do anything.
Just saying. People's reaction during preview season, and then what the reality of the consequences of those cards are, can be very different things.
Preview season brings its own fun and games along with it.
Snapcaster Mage, woohoo! Cheap card drawing, cheap counters, and cheap removals haven't been good in Constructed Magic before, but finally we have an enabler to make those effects good enough.
More gut shots for everybody.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. What are you talking about?
Dismember, woohoo! Now I get to kill stuff even if I'm playing blue-white. And then it turns out that letting your opponent kill stuff when they're playing blue-white's not great. I'm just saying.
Here's an ancestral vision. It has been placed on suspend.
Rudy has kept an ambitious hand here. I think he's on a one-lander, and there's color issues because he's playing a 3.5 color deck.
I was gonna say, is it because he's playing a 4-color deck and he has 1 land? Is that perhaps why there are color issues?
Correct.
Ambitious, to say the least.
I mean, he has Ancestral plus Force blue cards, so I guess you can talk yourself into a lot of things, but this hand could be a catastrophe.
Flooded Strand will bring Johnson down to 19.
Somewhere Gerard Fabiano is watching and smiling.
Actually, somewhere is here.
That's true.
He's
Yeah.
here.
He's
Perhaps-
actually here.
Perhaps he's over Rudy's shoulder.
Yeah.
Sure.
He's actually probably playing his match.
Sure. See what Johnson can put together here on the first turn. Probably some sort of cantrip. He will just simply pass. Briksza will draw a Brainstorm and cast it. This could end poorly. But a Wasteland, and Liliana of the Veil, and looks like the third one was a Creeping Tar Pit.
So, not the end of the world, but not great. His green cards are going to be shut off for a long time, and that's where his pressure comes from. But he's going to be at least able to make some land drops, probably get Liliana of the Veil into play. It's not great, but given what could have happened, far better than a lot of other situations.
Johnson will draw. There's the mountain. Does have a Lotus Petal there too. Could make a move. There's a Petal. Does have a show and tell, but he's just gonna wait. Here's Liliana of the Veil. Liliana will tick up. Both players ready to discard, we think. Tarmogoyf and Emrakul will go to their respective graveyards. Johnson will have to shuffle his in.
The preemptive Tarmogoyf die.
Somebody knows they're casting soon, I suppose.
Some optimism.
Giving advanced notice. So Johnson with 3 mana on turn 2. We're moving to his 3rd turn of the game. See what he can find. Copy of Ancient Tomb.
I mean, if he was close to going off last turn, I have to imagine that Ancient Tomb makes it really appealing.
Looks like he's going to try to go off now. He's going to take 2. It's time to make a move. Show and tell. Forcible removing Charlotte's Agent here for Briksza. The response here will be a Brainstorm. 3 cards here for Peter. 2 cards will have to go back, and it does not look like he found a Force of Will here in this situation.
nor can he shuffle his deck. So it looks like his hand now is several copies of Omniscience, some things to reanimate, and nothing else.
It'll be a roundabout way of shuffling his deck, as Liliana is likely to tick up,
Yeah, he gets if Rudy cooperates, then
and he gets to discard Nemmercool.
there you go.
Now this is how you shuffle with the Brainstorm. Through the back door.
Yep. Very polite of Rudy to help him out here.
Rudy with the Wasteland in play. Does make you wonder if he has interest in maybe tagging that Ancient Tomb.
I mean, it's, Peter is running pretty light on resources here. He would have to have another land and a show and tell and a thing to put into play, and you're asking a lot if you cut off this Ancient Tomb.
Yeah. He will fire off and kill the Ancient Tomb now. Tarmogoyf that is not in play has grown to a 4/5.
Yep. Well, you just never know,
There's a Flooded Strand. And now here's Dig Through Time. So now the Tarmogoyf die no longer necessary.
Right. It's now a 1-2.
Yes.
Rudy gets very close to a new opening hand here with this Dig Through Time and the Visions coming off suspend.
Bunch of cards to the bottom. Dig Through Time done resolving. Ancestral Visions will resolve as well. Tarmogoyf, Thoughtseize, Deathrite Shaman that draws off of that. Tropical Island the draw for the turn. Green mana is very nice to have right now. And leading off with a Thoughtseize seems like a pretty good place to start. I'll go with a hymn instead.
Yeah, I like just hemming this guy.
Teach him a lesson.
Yeah, I mean, you're putting him on having to rip A to go along with B, assuming that there is even an A or B in the hand.
Sure. Now Peter is empty-handed, and it seems almost impossible to win from this situation. He's never going to get to keep a card in his hand.
Yeah.
Now there's a copy of Pyroclasm. Take that, Deathrite Shaman. And now Rudy can get the Tarmogoyf die out,
Yes.
as there is a Tarmogoyf in play.
Should have been keeping track, I guess, the whole time.
It is a 5/6.
Yep. The 4 usual suspects plus an artifact.
Yep. And now we ultimate Liliana.
That seems very dangerous, as now Peter has an opportunity to say, kind of just draw out of this. He's no longer locked. And Liliana plussing is very hard for Peter to get out of with 3 mana.
It would take a certain sequence of draws from Peter, but I think you open yourself up to a sequence of draws.
It basically has to be, for Peter to beat the Liliana in that spot, he basically has to dig through time, dig through time and find really specific cards.
Yeah.
And maybe he has to rip a land before he rips dig through time to even make that a possibility.
You see the attack there for 9. Rudy will show you a Force Will plus a Force Will, and this will get the job done. Rudy Briksza going to win this match here over Peter Johnson. 2-1. Charlotte Soltai will take care of Sneak and Show. Typically a tough matchup there for Charlotte Soltai, but able to get the job done.